If you can stop talking for 10 seconds, that would be fantastic. You want to hit the start timer on there? You want to hit? You want to start podcasting, genius?
Finest team all over Boston. Give it up for Lloyd Legacy Sharp.
Good evening. Welcome to the affirmative action portion. I didn't do it.
Hello, and welcome to Carnival Personnel Sideshow. I'm Jacques.
I'm Joe.
So, Joe, I told you a few weeks ago, I was out in the lovely city of Worcester doing an open mic. And I'm going to say in the 7 months that I've been, going through this midlife crisis, I've probably been out to Worcester to 5, maybe 6 different places, at least 5 to 6 different places, a total of maybe 25 times. It's, as we talked, I'm so happy that Lowell has a scene and I found other places. Worcester's okay. It's not my favorite place. It's not the most inclusive place when it comes to comedy. So depending on the place you go, I just stopped going to some places because it was too much Proud Boy light, punching down, just using words that in 2023 don't fly anymore. In fact, a lot of the words that they use don't fly as of like the new millennia, like the year 2000. I'm sitting there at this place called Blackstone, and my friend Ian Sargent is hosting this mic. And Ian is one of the funniest guys I know. He's a sweetheart of a man. He's also one of the best hosts. He's a funny guy. I love his cadence. He hasn't been doing comedy that long, but he has a real veteran's kind of vibe to him. And the mic had already started, and in walks this other comic. And the hush fell around the room of royalty had entered the building. I've been doing comedy, like I said, 7 months, probably between Boston, Worcester, Lowell, Manchester, New Hampshire, maybe 20 different places. I've not seen this guy. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, he's a friend of one of these guys. A couple of these guys has done a mic. And there was this buzz of, I can't believe he is here. And it was one of those nights where I had time and I wasn't going anywhere. I had gone on first or second, and this guy doesn't go up to like 15th. And I'm not saying the room was dead at that point, but it wasn't the most lively room I've seen. He gets up there. He says 9 words. 9 words. Everybody, including me, either if you were drinking a beverage at the time, you did a spit take, or you just fell off your chair. And within those 9 words, 2 short sentences, I'm like, okay, I get why there was such a buzz that this guy, joined the fray. I'm not going to say what his joke was. I'm just going to say it was one of those few times I ran home and I instantly told the wife, I wish you were there. Because I in a million years, I would not make her go to an open mic. In a billion years, I would not drag her to Worcester to see an open mic. But in this case, I told her what this gentleman said, and she instantly started laughing because not only was it just a funny line, it was such a true statement. And honestly, it made me say, okay, I'm going to follow this guy. I'm going to check him out. And I started following him on Instagram, not in person. I don't need another restraining order. I can't go to another court date. I hate putting on a suit. This man, I can't confirm this, but I believe holds the Instagram record for most posts in a day. He also holds the most posts for an hour, and he is a walking embodiment of Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live. All of his posts are so affirming, are so positive in a world of nothing but one nut kick after the next, the toxicity of social media. He is fighting a one-man battle to remind you, yep, everything around you sucks, but you matter. So you get up and you keep going forward. It's all that stuff. It's all that, hey, if you're, if you're a giver, know your limits, because takers don't have them. And, you're one of those special people. It's like, and it's every time I see his post, he also seems to walk in many different worlds, which we will get into. So I know it's been a long-winded introduction. My friend Biff. Biff would have cut me off
10 minutes.
Biff would have cut me off 5 minutes ago. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, Lloyd Legacy Sharp. Hello, Lloyd. How are you?
Hi. Thanks for having me aboard.
You live up to the title. Like when you were introduced, I thought my friend, Ian Sargent was just being kind when he said like Legacy Sharp, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that's a weighty title to bestow on somebody, but you lived up to it. Lloyd, again, welcome to the show. Tell everybody who you are and how you got to be where you are in comedy.
Oh boy, how do we surmise this in under an hour? Hello, everybody. I'm Lloyd, quote, Legacy Sharp. Quick side note about that nickname for those inquiring minds. In 2003, I started doing music because in 2003, my mother passed away, and I needed a way to try to deal with that without doing the intaking of some form or another, for those who are listening, drugs or alcohol. So I chose music, which I had no idea what I was doing, but I had, if you're going to do music, you need a name. So one day I'm playing NBA Ballers on the original Xbox, because I am that old. And one of my creative characters, one of the options for his name was, as the in-game announcer shouted out, Legacy! So I'm like, that's the name. That's the name. I didn't even use that name for my creative character in the game. That was just one of the options. And I'm like, that's my music name. Now, somewhere between 04 and 05, as I started to try to do independent music, people that either I knew, some of my family, and even people that I just met along the way, they started calling me Legacy. Without me like telling them, I'm like, I'm Lloyd. Legacy's my rap name, but I'm Lloyd to you, or everybody. They just started calling me Legacy, but like of their own volition. So it's a name that started to track, and it's a name that followed me throughout and long after I stopped doing music. So around 2007, since everybody just was calling me this, I'm like, all right, I need something that ties this to me in a way that isn't just a nickname. Like, if people are going to call me this, if this is going to stick, like many things I do or I have done that I never meant for it to become a thing, and it just catches on organically. I'm like, all right, I'm going to give myself an acronym. That way, even if I'm not doing music anymore, which 4 years later I wasn't, but even if I'm not doing music anymore, this will still be synonymous with me in a way that I'm okay with people calling me it. So the acronym I gave to myself as Legacy is Love Ever Growing as Contempt Yields.
See what I said about the positivity show that he puts out? He can't go to, even in his stand-up, he just, so, he and I'm going to bring up a couple of the bits that I've seen him do where, it's a rain shower of just, life finding a way to, make awful things happen around you, and he finds that the silver lining in there. But let's stick with comedy first of all.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that nickname thing out of the way for
no, it's but you however you got the mantle. When I heard it, I'm like, well, that's a lofty thing, and halfway through the set, I'm like, yep, he deserves that title. I get it, because like I said, the room lit up when you walked in. It was like watching a Christmas tree turned on. It's like
even I couldn't believe it. I was taken aback by that. I'm like, everybody's like, Like this is like it's like CM Punk coming back in 2021. Like what the hell is going on here?
But let's flash forward. It's 2 months later. I see you in Watertown, and it's the same thing. And that day in Watertown, I wasn't planning on staying for the whole thing because my buddy Casey and we had done a mic in Lawrence at this place called One Broadway Collaborative. It's a mid-afternoon mic, and Casey had never been out to Watertown. I was getting ready for a big booked show that was a 15-minute set last week, and I'm like, I gotta hit as many mics. Let's drive the hour out there. And I said, we'll go on second, third, fourth, stay for 5 or 6 people because I'm big on. I gotta stay for 4 or 5 or 6 people just to be supportive to the community. And ended up being like 25 people. You walked in, probably one person before we were going to leave, and I'm like, well, we're fucking staying, so buckle up. And I'm going to get to the bit that you did. But I'm like, and even Casey's like, the drive home, he's like, okay, I get it. I get why you want to wait around. Not just to be nice and supportive of this very sweet man, but because he's worth it. The funny was well worth the hours sitting there through the other 10 comics extra before you went up. But it's the same thing. When you walked in, that room is like, oh, Lloyd's here. It's like Leopold, and so when did you start comedy?
So I started doing comedy in 2016. And the weird thing and this is always a weird trajectory because people who know me now or have only met me in the last maybe 4 years would be surprised at how my first couple of years of comedy went. Because first of all, I just went to the Winter Circle in Salisbury, Massachusetts, which is the Tuesday open mic. I went there to support my friend Jay DeMille, who is also a comic, who I met them before I started doing comedy. I met them during a time period of my life where kind of after I had separated from some really horrible people and horrible times, which is another story for a different segment. But that's when I met them, and they were just going to the Winter Circle, and I'm like, all right, I'll come along. I had never been to an open mic before that. I knew comedy existed. I knew, we've had, CK and Cook and all these people come out of Boston, also John Panette, not mentioned enough as a Boston comic, but I know that we all have had, I knew Boston comedy was a thing. I had no idea there was a local independent scene. I was just going to see my friend do comedy. And so I'm sitting there watching Jay do comedy. A combination of Dave Radigan and Josh Day is kind of how I ended up on stage because I'm in the crowd enjoying the show as I do when I'm not on stage. And again, I was a fan. I'm not a comedian at that point. I'm just supporting Jay DeMille. Dave Radigan comes over to me, and I think him and Josh were talking. Dave ends up coming over to me and saying, you got a lot of good energy, kid. You want to give that a try? You want to go up there or something? I'm like, no, I'm not here for that. I'm just here to support Jay. I'm just here to watch Jay. I'm not here to, I'm just here just to watch. Are you sure you don't want to go up? Because you got a lot of good energy. You're very supportive. You seem to really like this. You want to go up there? I'm like, no, I don't want to go up there. I'm just here to support Jay. The other comics are fine. I'm just here to support Jay. Well, we signed you up. You're up next week. What? And that's how I became a comedian.
How many times do you think you were at the mic before you got up?
That once.
Just the once. Okay. Well,
yeah.
That's the energy you bring to a room. Okay, we're going to sidebar. Josh Day. Now, how tall are you? Are you, Lloyd?
I am billed at 6'1".
Okay. And your shoulder span is about 6'2". I mean, Lloyd is a big man. Josh Day is a very big man too. Yes or no? Josh Day has the most majestic head of hair you've ever seen in your life.
Yes. It's if not the most, definitely top 3.
Well, okay. Where does Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings?
Oh.
I mean, honestly, first of all, Joe, this guy Josh is a hilarious guy. I mean, he is our, like with Lloyd, he's that rung or two up from, where me and a lot of, our friends are. But he does, he's a funny guy, so I don't want to make him, it's just a tear. But the first time I saw him, he looks like a character out of Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. He's as tall and as wide, just a shoulder span like a condor, and just hair. So yeah, the Winter Circle, I've heard about that place. I haven't got out. Like, it's funny because everything's an hour from here, but like there's some things that are an hour from here that's like, well, I'll go 45 minutes to Manchester, but I want to go the hour to Salisbury, and that's a mic I'm going to hit. So you get up there the next week. How did that week? Did you prepare? Did you wing it? Were you nervous? How was that first time going from I'm here to support my friend, to hey, I'm an open mic comic?
Yeah, quite the segue. So the answer to all the questions you just asked is yes. What a punchline setup, I don't know any of this. So like, all right, channel's just laid down, gonna go up there. So what I did was I went back and I found 3 years I think 3 or more years of a collection of stuff that I had wrote on Twitter up to that point, back when Twitter was just like 140 characters. So like things that are short enough to pass as a joke if it's intended to be funny. And I scoured through at least, I want to say, I don't know, a couple hundred of tweets that I had, because I've only been on Twitter since 2016, and 2010, 2016 is a long time, but like compared to how long Twitter's been around, and the fact that it wasn't the platform I used the most, not relatively much. But I went through everything I had ever posted on there, and I just tried to find things that sounded funny to me. And then I tried to just I took them and I printed them out, and I tried to compile like maybe 11 tweets that were kind of funny into some semblance of a set. And I went over it like 3, 4, 5 times, like in the days leading up. After I printed it out, I went over all 11 tweets in a certain order, just several times, trying to remember it, trying to memorize it. I didn't completely memorize it. I actually put some notes on my arm and taped it on my arm, and then just rolled my sleeve over it. Which you can look at notes and I didn't know that you could look at notes and open mic. I had never done open mic at this point, but I didn't know that. So that's how I did it the first time. And nervous, very. I think it went well. I was invited back to try it again. Dave thought there was something there.
It's funny because this is now the second time we've had a guest in the last couple months of somebody I'm a fan of, Paul Bort, who we had on, who also, I think the first mic that he went to up in Manchester, New Hampshire, Josh was hosting. And after the first time he went up, said, hey, come back next week, So, and the first time I saw him, I didn't know who he was. He did the open mic at the Safe, just, another Yahoo like us going up there. And, but the same thing, he had this really positive coming over and talking to people, and being encouraging. So it's good to hear that that's, how he is. So the second time up, how much more composed or ready were you, or was it actually harder the second time going up?
Honestly, it didn't get easier until 2018. My first 2 years was a blitz burn because, again, I had some people, like my second time going up, I understood the structure of what a 5-minute set, the light, watch for the light, that kind of thing. But my first 2 years can be summed up as, how can you put it? Potential, but no substance. Because again, I had no idea some people walk into an open mic for the first time, they know that they don't know how to be funny yet, or they don't know but they know that that's what they're going to do. Like they're somewhat engaged in the mindset of, okay, I am going to this place to do comedy, and I'm going to this place to learn about it. Like I literally walked in as a fan and was told to perform. So I was learning as I went. And along the way, there was these veterans up there who were giving me less than good advice, because between 2016 and 2017, The thing that people said about Lloyd was on stage, he has great stage presence. He knows how to get up there and make people take note that he's up there, but the writing is just not there. And I can go back and watch DVDs from that, but they record DVDs for you at the Winner's Circle.
That was nice.
So I go back and I watch, footage from that time, and I go back and I listen to recordings. And yeah, because I had no idea how to write jokes as somebody who did not intend to write anything when I first came there, I had all of the theatrical presence that I brought with me from, years of doing other things. Like, this whole Michael Jackson thing is a big deal. And I've been doing that since 1995. So I know how to perform in front of an audience, but like telling jokes was foreign. And then you have these old heads who are like, maybe what'll help you is if you try to go for less punchlines and tell more of a story. Which, again, in hindsight, that's ridiculous, especially for a new comic who is trying to find his first 5 minutes. One of the greatest comics and worst human beings of all time, Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
Obviously, when it comes to storytelling and making you laugh, even when there's no punchline break, he as a comedian, I have a hard time separating the art from the artist based on what I know now. But like as a comedian, unless you are that great of storyteller, you do not tell a comic who's trying to find his first 5 minutes, less punchlines, more story. Because I followed that advice because I didn't know any better. And what ended up being the case was I ended up just writing, trying to find a punchline, and it would take me 4 minutes to get to a punchline in a 5-minute set. And so that was the case for about 2 years. There was one night in 2017 where I had a moment where I was talking about Fox and CNN. And that was kind of like I think the joke was like, the joke actually it's on Instagram. The joke was basing your entire information palette on Fox News and CNN is like calling a pizza place and saying, oh yeah, I'd like an order of information, extra bullshit, hold the truth, and trying to watch the facts and reality intake. Thank you. And that was the first joke I had written in my entire first 2 years. And somebody actually like Mike McDonald, actually pointed to that moment and said, that is the most like you I've ever heard. I've heard you do a lot of stuff up there that sounds like you were trying to come from somewhere that you're being told to come from. I'm going to give you some advice. And this is Mike McDonald. Like, he's veteran, performed all over the world, has performed alongside people like John Panette, like freaking Bill Burr, people like that. I see there's a video of him on YouTube with John Panette at Nick's Comedy Stop. Like, it's insane. So I'm gonna listen to this guy because this guy has yet to give me advice. He's like, people can advise you on whether or not you're funny, or they can advise you on whether or not you suck. But either way, nobody can tell you how to go up there and do it as yourself.
Did you say Mike Donovan?
Mike McDonald.
Mike McDonald. Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Not
because
from the Doobie Brothers, by the way. It's a different Mike
Yeah.
which Doobie you be? Which
So
is
that was the greatest. That was the greatest advice I ever got, and that kind of factored into what happened in 2018. But I've talked enough. I'll let you.
No, because this is why we have you on, because I love to find out. I mean, everybody's story has so many similar moments in it, but at the same time, a different arc. And I always love I can do this. I'm thinking about doing this too. Actually doing it, like you know what I mean? Like, we all lose our virginity at one point. I know it's such a cliche thing to compare, but
speak for yourself, by the way.
Hey, you keep plugging away, Joe. You'll get there. You'll find a victim
Thanks,
someday.
Man.
Hey, not everybody can run as fast as the rest of them.
Hey, I'm 3 years away from tying the 40-year-old virgin record, so I'm right there with you.
So,
and that's not a joke. It is a joke, but it's also true.
but it is. It's I love these stories. Now, when do you think you got to where you are? And let me tell people where Lloyd is right now. Lloyd, the last time I saw him in person, had a 5-minute set, and 2 minutes of his set, he didn't say a goddamn word. Not one. And this is the worst thing to talk about on a podcast because it's so visual. But I told Lloyd, or I didn't tell Lloyd, I talked to Lloyd afterwards that Joe and I, if you think of the oeuvre of comedy that we love, that we live for, and Lloyd, Joe and I get together and we just watched an episode of the Tonight Show from 1962 that Jerry Lewis hosted. I mean, when I say we go back, to that kind of comedy and across the board, but Bob Newhart is one of our go-to favorite guys. And so much of what Bob Newhart did, as you and I talked that night, it's all just reacting to what other people said. And you were telling a story, and I don't know how deep you want to get into it, if you want to mention, if you like to save your stuff for in person, but you're telling this incredibly funny yet horrific situation you're in, and to which somebody says something that is so insane and hard to put into words that for 2 minutes you're pantomiming, trying to come to grips that a human being has said this to you, and you start to retort, you start to say something back, and you stop yourself, and you can see yourself rethinking about how to reapproach it. And that went on for 2 minutes, where your 5 minute set, you don't say anything for 2 minutes, and yet the room was on the floor. Like there was 30 people in that small room at Donovan's in Watertown, and every one of them across the board was just, every time you started to talk and you rethought about it and you made a different face and your body, your stance changed, your posture, either just drooped or whatever, and you went from being angry at this man to confused by this man to feeling bad for this man to being angry at him. You took us on a roller coaster ride without saying anything, and that's a level of comfort that I don't know how many performers on the national circuit would be able to hold an audience in their hand for 2 minutes without saying anything. How did you get to that point?
Oh man. First of all, thank you. Secondly, yeah. So 2018. That was kind of my breakout year. What Demetrius Hullum, aka Big D, here in Boston called the Summer of Legacy. In April of 2018. Now this isn't as crucial to the story, but it does play a part because I wasn't always a sentimental favorite to the community that I am now. There was a time where people didn't buy, well, I don't want to say they didn't buy it, because I was who I was, and apparently there aren't people like me off stage in the Boston comedy community. So I walk around
super nice.
Yeah, apparently. Nice, vocally speaking out against speaking out in favor of women, which I've been doing since 1999. It's just something I do. And so people, a lot of people were like, yeah, I like this kid, he's cool. But a lot of people were kind of, I don't know about that guy. People like him, they're hiding something. And I get that. Honestly, if I hadn't been around me for the past 25 years, I wouldn't trust me either. But I've been around me long enough to know that there has been no, I know there's no switch coming, but they didn't know that. And a lot of people, and I also spent more time advocating for other people than I did myself. And I'm like, oh, they're pretty funny. Don't, I'm not going to nag. I'm not going to bother. People took what I was doing, just being myself, as either lying or trying to gain favor for extra opportunities that I never asked for, which is how they eventually warmed up. Basically, I was not having the best time as a Boston comedian in 2018. And in April of 2018, I said, the hell with all this. I'm done listening to this person and that person and this person and that person. I'm going to start speaking the way I want to speak. And I'm just going to see, and hopefully that'll work. I've been told how to talk. I've been told what cadence to use. I've been told how to construct myself as far as on stage joke telling. I'm just going to go up there and be myself once. And if it works, I'm going to go with it. Fuck all of you. And so I did that at Jacques Cabaret in April of 2018, Sarah Francis, who is a beyond the business friend of mine, who's no longer doing comedy, but we're still friends, we still talk, and Laura Burns, who was at the time a comedian and a booker, and I think she's trying to come back now, but they were there. They were the first who were kind of there when I started this, saw this transformation. So I had this whole set planned around like my anger at Boston comedy. And the gist of the premise, and this is kind of where I transformed into the performer that I am now. Because I went up there and I was very, like, there was no trying to be funny or trying to appeal. This was just me going up there and speaking. And the general layout of the set was me saying, I thought I could find peace and harmony in the Boston comedy community, but no, I'm apparently stupid AF. And
yep, no, I get that. I see that, you know.
And so as it continued, exactly. And as it continued, I said, and this is where I actually wrote this. This is the first time that I actually wrote something in the form of, if I was going to write a joke, how would I write it? And this is the first time I actually did that, aside from that CNN Fox thing, and that's which is kind of easy. And you can make fun of CNN and Fox and get half the room on your side either way. But I wrote this because of what I was feeling at the time, and it went on like this. I'm like, so the reason why, and I had taken like a couple of weeks off because I was so mad about everything, and I'm like, and I came back, and it was, oh, Lloyd's coming back, check him out. And so the reason why I've been gone a couple of weeks, as I said that night, is because let's just say that I go into a restaurant and I order something, and they don't bring me what I ordered. Instead, they give me enough. And then on the side of this enough, they bring me a double side order of enough. And so what I'm basically trying to tell you is that I've been gone for 2 weeks because I had had more than enough of Boston comedy.
Joe and I were in LA in the mid to late 90s. And one of the things we did sketch comedy together. I'm still in a rock band, and we were really looking forward to doing stand-up. I ended up meeting and becoming friends with a guy who's still a huge national guy. But most of the comics that were doing this were so miserably unhappy that they wouldn't want to talk or have anything to do with you. The light switch went on as they were walking to the mic, being handed, the microphone from the host. And as they're not quite off stage, but they've already handed the host back, they do their 5 minutes, their 10 minutes, their 15 minutes and kill. And that light switch gets turned off and they're back to being miserable pricks. And it's like, this isn't fun. It was just, and it's like, and the scene that's going on now, there are some places I've been where that is still a thing. Look, it's the way it is. There's some people, like I said, I've gone to some mics and there's been some nice guys whose their stuff is just so outdated. It's so Andrew Dice Clay, Sam Kinison, misogynistic. And look, fan of Andrew Dice Clay, fan of Sam Kinison at the time. Post Me Too, post Time's Up, post having kids, post, being an uncle to two mid-20, like the most amazing young women in my life. It's like, that's who's in my head when I'm thinking of certain things. And I'm like, no, but just that. And it's like, I've had enough. That's a hilarious spit. And how was that received when you're like, yeah, I'm not putting up with your bullshit? How was that received?
So that set was pretty much the turning point from the comic that I was my first 2 years to the comic I am now. Because it was the first time that I went on stage and spoke as much in the reflection of myself as I had up to that point. And I mentioned Sarah and Laura earlier. Sarah said something to the effect of, that wasn't Lloyd we just saw up there. That was somebody different. And then Laura said, no, Sarah, that was Lloyd, but with the volume turned up. And so, which ironically is exactly the way that people used to describe characters from the Attitude Era. just themselves with the volume turned up. The attitude era, something else hasn't aged well. But like as far as characters speaking and being themselves, that night was pretty much the catalyst for the writer and the performer that I became. Because I was always afraid to go up there, and because naturally in real life, I'm a ball of energy who speaks a mile a minute. And that can work against you on stage where you're supposed to not speak over the laughter and make sure you have a moment to have things register. By this point, between April and May, when I started writing to my style, because at this moment, everybody was nobody hated that bit. But they were shocked that I was, because again, this is not the performer that I had been for the past 2 years. They just saw somebody who had all the presence and none of the jokes. This is the first time anybody saw me be as close to the version of myself that I am on stage. And they were like, why hasn't he been doing this whole? That was the main thing people say. Why hasn't he been doing this whole time? That worked. That was good. Why hasn't he been doing this since he first started? That's him. That's Lloyd. And so when I realized that it worked, I started writing to my style. I started writing to the style I did that night. And as far as the performer I am now, the jokes that I come up with, the cadence, the beat pausing, which that joke you mentioned about the Connecticut story. There's a story about from the Frolic and Detour mic in Acton, where that 2 minutes without speaking, that happened in Acton the first time, where like literally I think it was Jeff Keown was hosting, and I think Nick Hahn was there. I think Paul Boric was there as well. Connor Ryan Ferguson was there. A lot of the people that were at that Watertown mic were there, and I was trying to talk, but they kept laughing. So I kept stretching the silence. And that's something that I actually learned in 2018 as well, how to sit in the silence. So I would say that night in April 2018 pretty much was the turning point for the comic that I am now, because 2 months after that night, I got my first gig.
Oh, that's great. I mean, first of all,
2 years in. It took 2 years. 2 years after I started doing it. And I never asked for a gig. I never wanted anything, because I'm like, I don't want to start before I'm ready, because you only get one chance to make your first good impression as a book performer. And 2 months after that set that I just told you about, where I was on stage as myself, or as close to myself as I've ever been, that was the catalyst. I got a show at the Art Lounge in Arlington. Before I left, as I'm walking out the door, I get my second gig at Maggie's Lounge in Quincy, rest in peace. And I went on to do 30 shows that year, 79 shows the next year, 40 shows the next year, 65 shows the next year, 104 shows last year. And that's kind of it. All started on that night in April at Jock's Cabaret.
You know, you mentioned.
Can you imagine doing? I'm sorry, I just want to interject.
Okay.
Can you imagine hitting that level of not being able to talk for 2 minutes? Can you imagine yourself?
As Lloyd was just talking now, I had to mute my mic so I could talk while he was talking. just so I'm so afraid of not filling up the empty space.
Yes.
You mentioned Paul, who's been on the podcast. You mentioned Nick, who I've done a booked mic with. My wife loves him because they're both like half Korean, and he had a bit about that with it was just nice. He's a really great guy too. Sadly, I think we're going to lose Nick and Paul to the great state of Colorado. They're headed out there, and they're taking some real talent with them. It's their plan. Also, you mentioned Connor Ferguson, who, by the way, I love that kid. Now, what did you do during the pandemic?
Well, during the pandemic, that's actually the year that I did 40 shows. 28 of them were before March 14th. And then obviously but the pandemic was obviously the rise of this platform we're doing right now. And during the pandemic, Zoom comedy, it started with local mics that could not do their mics in person. they started doing it over Zoom. Places like Midway Cafe, places like Rob Crean started hosting his Thursday. Rob Crean and actually the Comedy Studio briefly started hosting their mics online. Other national, international entities started doing their mics online. And although Zoom comedy isn't for everybody as a platform, and I get that, the issue is like the networking that was possible during the Zoom comedy era, regardless of how you felt about performing during a time where you could not be in front of a live audience, the networking was unbelievable. And anybody who said that online comedy cannot have any impact on your actual career is lying. Because Steve Sweeney first heard me online, had never seen me live, got my phone number from Old Dirty Boston, and was on the phone with me after seeing me twice, wondering why I had not done clubs yet. Just from seeing me online. Will Noonan saw me online for the first time during the pandemic and was like, I want that guy at Capo. Never saw me live, just on Zoom. I got my first gig in New York City based on Zoom 2 years ago. So Michelle Sloman, who is a booker in New York, saw me on Zoom and was like, if you ever come to New York City, actually, if you want to just come to New York City and do a spot, please come. Sue Costello, who I've been a fan of since I was a little kid. She first caught wind. She actually found me. Sue, okay, this is a bit of a sidebar from the pandemic. She first saw me do comedy during the pandemic. She was like, I want you on one of my shows. But Sue Costello reached out to me in February of 2020 and was asking me for advice on local talent. Sue Costello.
Yeah.
TV star. Comic that was doing this before I was even born. Didn't reach out to Justin McKinney. Didn't reach out to freaking Dave Russo. Didn't reach out to this. He reached out. I didn't even know. I don't know how Sue Costello knew I didn't know Sue Costello knew who I was before. Like I knew who Sue Costello was, obviously. I was sitting here watching Costello as a little kid on Fox. She inboxes me out of nowhere in February. I'm like, how the hell does Sue Costello? And then again, Steve Sweeney saw me doing comedy during the pandemic. I meet him in person during an Old Dirty Boston podcast with Jason and Big D and Dan Hall. And I walk in, Steve Sweeney's like, Lloyd Legacy Sharp, big fan. And I'm like, what kind of role reversal is this? So during the pandemic, I had the opportunity to network like crazy. And there are spots waiting for me as of right now. There are people waiting to work with me in Florida, in Nebraska, in
there are UK. 50 states, aren't there? You know, you got to take all of them. You got to take them all in.
I mean, it is traveling is a goal, but like the pandemic got eyes on me from some key spots around the world that would not have been possible, or at least possible during that time, if not for the comedy networking that Zoom kind of forced us to have. So long story short, during the pandemic, I pretty much just did as much Zoom comedy as possible. It's like, oh, it'll never do anything for your career and you'll never get anywhere with Zoom comedy. You're just wasting your fucking time. And those people have not done shows in New York based on Zoom comedy. That's what I was basically doing, expanding my networking during the pandemic. The only thing we really could do for about 8 months of it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that you would want to branch out and do your stuff online so that more people can see, because everybody's online now. It's not like, you know, the early 2010s or whatever, where people were like, what's YouTube and what? Who are these people? And that kind of thing, where no, it's been normalized, and the pandemic kind of forced everybody in the world to get online more. And
now there are online shows that still run today. Like I just did one earlier this afternoon called, I think it was called Speaking Proper Comedy, something like that. That like it was on Twitch, it was on Zoom. There was an audience of like 50 people, which is more than some comedy rooms in real life get on a given night. There's a market for it, and I still do Zoom mics. I still do Zoom comedy. I do it in real life stuff, but the pandemic really kind of set in motion for those who are willing to give it a chance. Because I understand it's not for everybody. This platform, speaking like this, if you're just so much addicted to the live spectacle and you cannot bring yourself to at least, I told everybody, try it. You may not be able to properly transition your act to the camera. And you know what? If you can't do that, I get it. Because if you can't transition your act to the camera, you're going to present a version of yourself that isn't as good as it would be if you could. And that's probably not the version of yourself that you want to present to an audience that are running rooms in California and Texas and all that stuff. But at least try it. And those who tried it, some of them grew to love it. Some of them couldn't do it. Some of them just couldn't. But the ones that didn't even give it a chance, I think they missed out.
I mean, it is harder to score Coke backstage on a Zoom meeting, but I get that.
I would listen to like Patton Oswalt, and he recently was talking about it took him 3 or 4 months to figure out how to be funny in this platform, because like the first few dozen things he was doing, he's just in a room and he's not hearing anything back. He's like, I don't know if it's landing. I don't know if I'm pausing for laughter or people just think I'm stroking out and I'm sitting here not saying anything.
Like when Rodney Dangerfield first did Caddyshack, he's like, nobody's laughing at my jokes. It's like, Rodney, we're doing a movie here. We can't laugh.
No, and I've not had, somebody talk to me on this podcast or in real life where they've been like, yeah, I killed it in comedy or, over this. So it's absolutely wonderful. But of course, I mean, like I've been saying, you're the most positive, uplifting person. You put so much positivity out there. Yeah, you're going to get that back. Seriously, Lloyd, that is amazing. And let's segue into, well, first of all, how many gigs do you think you're going to do in this calendar year? Do you have a goal?
Goal versus expectation. That's a good distinction. Like I said, I did 104 shows last year, which is the most I'd ever done in a year up to this point. And I get a lot of pats on the back for that, which, I don't want to undersell it, but 2022 is the first year that we had open completely from bell to bell, so to speak, since the lockdown opened in the middle of 2000. Lockdown, not the pandemic, because that lasted a little longer, but lockdown itself ended in the middle of 2021. So that wasn't really a full calendar year we had open. 2022 was the first calendar year from bell to bell that we had open. And I'm more thankful that there was 102 opportunities to do comedy, given how hard businesses and live entertainment and venues were hit. And some of the shows were on Zoom. They were shows, so I counted them, or at least I had them written down as shows. And I wouldn't even know how many shows I did if it wasn't for Google just tallying everything. But this year, I don't know. I never have a tally goal for a year. Like 2019 is the first year that I did 79 shows in 2019, which is a huge jump from 30 the previous year, which is the first year I ever did book shows. And I learned that year, burnout is a thing. I learned that in 2000, like the most successful comics at this level. I mean, unless you're somebody like Brianna Woodward or Sherilyn or Jaylene Tran or AJ Haypenny, who could just go, and they may feel it, but you'll never be able to tell.
They play through
like,
the pain.
I'm never gonna tell. Because I'm always a self-care, well-being first kind of person. I would rather, like right now, like in the month of June, I'm pretty sure I have somewhere in the vein of 20 or more shows this month. Ooh. And I have turned down, like I got offered opportunities to perform 1 of 2 of 3 extra days in June, and I said no. I took the July options because there's a certain cap to where what looks good on a poster calendar oh, he's doing 3 nights in a row, 4 nights this week. Well, it looks good on a poster calendar. What you don't see is when a person goes home and
Yeah.
yeah. So
you're not a bike being rented. You know what I mean? Like you're a person who needs rest. And,
right.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I don't want to I don't have a tally goal. How many shows do I think I'll do this year? I've already done close to or just over like 40 so far. Maybe close to 50. I have to look at Google will tell me in 2 months. So like if I equal my 2019 output, I'll be grateful. Like I am not actively trying to surpass 104 shows. I'm not. If I do, great. Like I'm not saying I wouldn't welcome that, but like as much as I had a banner year last year, there were a lot of people that I felt were deserving, either as or more deserving than I was, of the opportunities that I got. And I'm seeing a lot of those people on the posters as much as I was last year. And I'm actually having more fun this year watching people who I felt were overlooked last year while I was out there having my 96 Bulls year. Now I'm seeing people who I felt were too far to the off the bench. They're having like people like just a couple of names like Jacqueline Wall and Julie Cameron and Kristen Tedos, and you know, people who there's so many, there's a lot of names, but like people like that. Nick Hahn is one of them. People who I thought were just like, they like, not that I didn't deserve what I got, but I just felt like there were so many times where I was the cleanup hitter, so to speak. Somebody would go out there and just say the worst thing and then double down on that thing and go over their time and leave. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here to bring us back, here's Lloyd Legacy Sharp. And it's like, you know, if this person or this person or this person who actually has talent and actually knows what the fuck you're doing, if they were on this show, it'd be even, I bring whatever I bring to it. Cool. You need a community of talented people in order to have I cannot be on every single show and every single slot across New England every single night. And you need a talented pool of comedians, quality comedians that you can have. There were just so many. There were so many people who were like, it's about us to a degree, but like when you're putting on a show, like it doesn't matter. You don't matter. You're trying to entertain an audience. Like it's about the audience in front of you. They are here to get a quality show, and you need to have people across a lineup who can be quality, and so that from the start, from the first comic until the last one, it was at least 90% worth it. And my only issue with last year, and there's a reason why I don't really have a tally this year, because last year was my best year personally, but I was on not every lineup, but I was on a lot of lineups that I said this to Corey Saunders, who's one of my favorite comics, who's now living in the New Jersey, New York area. But I said, if I'm in a world where people like Josh Day, people like Jay DeMule, people like Kelly McFarland, people like Kathy Ferris, people like Katie Arroyo, people like, people like, Jay Whitaker, people like Jason Cordova, people like Tookie Kavanagh, Zenobia Delmar, Brianna Woodward, in a world where they exist. If I'm the best you've got, you could be doing better. Not that I'm not good. But like I said, if you could draft anybody and you bring on, I don't know, you bring in Ray Allen. Okay, yeah, you got Ray Allen. That's great. But if you could have Ray Allen, Michael Jordan, Reggie Miller, Willis Reed, and Walt Frazier, and you only have Ray Allen, you could be putting together a better lineup. So last year, 104 shows. It was great for me. Bittersweet watching the scene. I have no tally this year. I'll take whatever I've earned, and I will be happy with it. But I'm more happy seeing talented people getting what they've worked for the same way I did last year.
Well, I mean, is there a, you've mentioned like different places around the country who want to see you. We've had a few people that Joe and I really like, who are New England-based comics, but who are national people. You're on that level. When do you get a national booker? When do you do the cruise ship things? When do you do the, you're living out of a suitcase? Because you're that level talent. I shouldn't see you at an open mic in Watertown, on a random Sunday night. I shouldn't see you at Blackstone's at Ian's mic. Delighted to see you. And that's why, honestly, that's why the room's like, what the fuck? Lloyd's here? I'm here. If Lloyd's here and I'm here, it's like, is he just working new stuff? Because I mean, do you not have a passport? Like, why aren't you doing? Because you are that level talent. Yeah, what's the matter? You are that level talent. Like you are cheating the rest of the country out of seeing you in person, my friend.
Well, to be fair, a lot of the traveling comic plans I had got sidetracked during a year where things weren't really moving all that much. And a lot of us had to kind of, and myself included, had to kind of restructure, rethink, re-strategize. A lot of the financial backing that I was going to put towards traveling, I had to put towards the home during that time. Especially with my father getting into finally starting to get medical care for the first time in like 30 years, which has done well for him. He's doing well, but like, I don't want to say, like, basically the answer to that question is everything except comedy.
Okay.
I also don't want to oversell myself, because like I'm talent wise, I may be at a certain level, but I also know my limits. I'm not a night to night headline act yet. When it comes to length, when it comes to how many minutes I can go tight,
right,
night after night after night. Like I'm a 25-minute tight guy on certainty. I may be able to go 30, and that's gonna get tested this next month in Shirley, Massachusetts. But like I've watched headliners. I was in a headline spot once in Ipswich, Massachusetts for one of Marlia Rosa's shows, the first show she ever did at the Mayflower. And I also did 50 minutes opening for a band for Porch Fest in Melrose like 2 years ago. Those are the longest sets I've ever done. And when you're in that position, like I was at Cityside 4 years ago, and I watched a headline act from BET come to Cityside and struggle to hold the room after 40 minutes while having to do 20 more.
Oh.
So like and again, BET, like this is like, I'm good. I'm good. I am not. I've been on television for 30 years and been doing this shit since Jay Leno was making bad jokes about women in the 90s. I'm not that level. So, and I'm not dismissing where I am from a talent perspective, but having watched headliners, so I guess I'm a fan first, performer second. I spent more time watching headliners in my first 3 or 4 years than I did getting booked until I started getting booked. And so I started getting put on shows. I spent more time watching and analyzing and assessing how things work. And I've seen the headliner's job. I've seen headliners who are more experienced than I am, who are better than I am. I'm not saying I'm not good. I just know who's better. And I've been in the headlining position. I've been in the headlining position once, and I've been in the almost do an hour for a show once. And when you've seen it and then you're there, you kind of know it's not as easy as you would like it to be for your own position. I'm already starting to break into New York a little bit. I did my first show in New York last year. I'm doing another show in New York on June 20th. There are mics that I'm picking at, that I'm targeting. Like there's mics in Philadelphia, there's mics in Virginia, there's mics in Atlanta, there's mics in California, there's mics in Texas that I'm eyeing, and that people who I know who either were in Boston and moved there, or people who've worked with me online said, if you ever come over here, let me know. So really, I I can easily slot into a feature spot anywhere in the country. I'm not denying that. And that's why I'm not, that's why the reasons why I haven't gone on a national tour yet is pretty much because the pandemic really set things back. Because after the pandemic, after a lockdown, because again, the pandemic, in my opinion, the pandemic is just starting to go out the door. Lockdown ended 2 years ago. The pandemic is just starting. So after lockdown, I had to find my way on a stage again, the way I did prior to lockdown. But I also have, there are 400 bullet points of material that I've yet to do live on a microphone.
Wow.
And one of the things that you mentioned earlier, is he doing new stuff? Yeah. Because one of the things that comes about when you're always on shows and you're always doing shows and you're always on booked shows where you have to bring your A-game material, you have no time to work out new stuff and write new stuff or work out the new stuff that you've written. Like that bit that I did in Watertown that you were so impressed by. I wrote that happened in 2017. The story it's based on. I wrote it as a bullet point in 2019, and I didn't get to perform it live until 2022.
Wow.
Why? Because I was on so many fucking shows.
Right. No, I mean, look, that is the great thing about open mics. Like, in a Boston area, in a Los Angeles area, how many headline people you'll see. Look, this is the only way to work out new shit. You don't work that shit out on a headlining 45-minute set. Nobody's wanting you to double check looking at a card saying, okay, well, hey, bear with me. I think I got this one down, but let me try it out on you.
Exactly. And I guess that would be the most comedy-based reason why I haven't branched out as much as I could, because after 2021 or during 2021, before I had that ridiculous year that I had last year, I had a chance to try things that I had written, because I write 12 to 15 jokes a day, or bullet points a day at least. So there's a huge backlog of stuff that I've not done. I'm gonna get 10 years from now, I'll have done half the stuff that I've written down right now. Because I'm writing 12 to 15 new jokes every single day.
I can't wait till 2033 to hear your Succession joke.
Yeah. Oh boy, I should start watching Succession. But the thing is, partly because I've been so focused on, I've been as focused as a person who is on as many shows as I was last year could be on developing new stuff, and if I hadn't put a certain focus to, when 2020, I had plans to do mics in New York, do mics in Philly, do mics in Virginia, do mics in my friend Rob in Texas, who's been trying to get me to visit him for years. You sent me a mic directory of it. I had all these plans to do this in 2020. 2020 would have been the year that, at least in a sense of checking out other scenes, whether it be just doing mics, maybe every 2 months, do a mic in a new state, build a rapport, get to know people, get to know the layout. 2020 was going to be the year that you just described that I should be doing now. But because that didn't happen, my focus had to shift to other things in the home, on the microphone, in the notebook. And again, I'm not saying that I'm not good enough to, Rena Calm. Rena Calm is a perfect example of a comic right now who's literally living out of her suitcase, but she's a headliner. She's a headline act who can make it worth her while to live out of her suitcase and get paid maybe 100 to 300 bucks a show for doing 45 to an hour every time she's on stage. And I admire her for that. I know that's not where I am time-wise yet. I want to travel out. I want to branch out, but until I'm a headline act who can do 40 to an hour on a nightly basis, not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times, enough to where living out of my suitcase is going to not just make it worth my while, but to ensure that not just a crowd that I got on my side in Maine, or a crowd that I got on my side in Connecticut, to make sure that when I go to Washington, D.C., or I go to Seattle, Washington, or I do Just for Laughs in Toronto, or I do Kim Nash's show in the UK, when I get to that point where I can also make it worth those crowds' time, guaranteed, then I'll live out of my suitcase. But before that, I'm going to go test out the mics and get some feature spots there to see how I do out there. And then maybe one day, living out of my suitcase as opposed to just traveling there and coming back will make sense.
Now, let's say you're so smart and methodical about your approach. I absolutely love that. No, you got home front responsibilities, and that's, some of the comics we've talked about, Paul going with his group of friends out to Denver. None of them are tied down or have taken care of a parent or have like somebody that that they're dependent on in any way. And it's like, yeah, this is the time to go. Other comics we've had, Steve Bjork, who's one of my favorite comics, and Joe. And another, just a sweetheart guy. He's a single dad of 4 kids. He makes a great living. He can't do the Jim Colton going on a cruise ship once a month type thing. So people have that. I want to segue into, I know very little about this side of your world other than seeing it on Instagram. You're not just a comic. You're on stage. And other walks of life, which I'd like you to tell everybody about, if you could dive into that.
Yeah. So for those of you who follow me on Instagram at Lloyd Legacy 617, you might have seen that there's a karaoke alter ego of mine that has been popular for about 7 years, but for some reason is really starting to catch traction now that I'm 7 years older and 6 steps slower. I'm a Michael Jackson tribute artist when I'm not doing comedy. It's weird because that goes back. Like, I started doing the Michael Jackson dance style for exercise in 1994 when I was living in Dorchester. Actually, last year I lived in Dorchester because Dorchester in the 90s wasn't great. And in order to kind of have something to do that was not what other kids my age, and if we're being completely honest and transparent, of my cultural distinction similarity were doing at that time, whenever I went outside, I just danced. And I became somewhat of a street performer. By the time I went to Roxbury, I would do Michael Jackson I'm just doing it for myself, really. And then kids from the neighborhood would come out and say, "Oh my God, Lloyd, he's doing Michael Jackson." Cars would pull up, cars driving up Lawrence, Cliver Street in Roxbury. they would stop. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a little kid in Roxbury. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? No, just keep doing what you were doing. So I keep dancing, and then they would say, "Hey, kid, come on over here." Adult in the car in the 90s, kid, come here. What can go wrong?
I'm a gruff and young dog would have a word with you about going to a car.
Exactly. But what happened is they'd pull out $5, $10, sometimes $20, and just give it to me. Nice. Just for me doing my exercises on the streets of Roxbury. So in its most simplified form, that's where what you're seeing. That's what Jock's is talking about. That's where it started. 20 years later, actually, wait, 20 years later, because I think I have to remember we're in the 20s now. We're in the roaring 20s. So, 20 years later, I am living this newfound life that I've lived since 2014, and I happened to stumble across a place in New Hampshire called Charlie's Tap House, which is on Ocean Boulevard in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. Great pizza. You should check it out. And it's a karaoke place. They do karaoke 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They don't do it 24 hours. I wish they did 24 hours a day. That'd be great. But they do it like all the time. And the crew that I met Jay DeMule as a part of, before I started doing comedy, a lot of friends. I have a lot of. Here's a sentence people don't say it, who look at me don't say very often. I have a lot of friends in the New Hampshire area. And they all did, we don't all get to see each other very often. We're all adults, which sucks. We all have responsibilities, which sucks even more. Some of them are parents, which is the worst. I respect it. I just don't envy it. And the only opportunity we really had to kind of all, we can't hang out at each other's houses like we could, if we were all like, teenagers, nothing better to do. We all come, hang out at your house, man. We all got things to do. But the one place we could always kind of hang out and see each other or plan ahead, let's all get together at Charlie's, catch up, say hi, whatever, before we don't get to see each other again for like a year. So that's where this whole thing started. I used to be known for doing The Doors and Billy Joel and things like that. And then one day I did You Rock My, this video is actually on my Facebook. One day I did You Rock My World, and I started doing some dancing from my Roxbury days during this song. And the owner of Charlie's Tap House, whose name was Chuck, ironically, said, like, he's in the back and he's like, that kid's got some performance. He's got some performance. He's got a performer in him. Look at how the room's gathering around him. Look, we should encourage that. That kid's got something. That kid's it's like Dave Radigan all over again. And then so for the next few months, the head DJ, Ben Kelly, love him. The former head bartender, whose name was Jess, they were kind of like, you should, don't be afraid to get up there and perform if you want to, do your thing. You could really become like an attraction around here. And I'm like, don't exalt me. I'm just like everybody else. I come to do karaoke like everybody else. I know how silly it sounds in hindsight, but I said, I'm no different than anybody else up there, which is what I said at the time. Before the suit, before all that, I'm like, because yeah, I may be more of a performer and an entertainer than your regular karaoke person who just kind of stands there, and which is that's what karaoke is. Not everybody that goes up there has to do what I do, but I didn't want special treatment just because I'm a flair for the theatrics. Just because I'm a theater kid without the degree. I don't want to be treated differently. My mother wanted to send me to freaking acting school in 1991, but we were recovering from the Reagan administration as a black family, so it didn't happen. But now we're at this point where here comes October 2017. Costume contest at Charlie's Tap House. The head DJ comes to me and says, we want you to compete in the costume contest. We think you do great. Now, they've already been trying to push me into this attraction position for the last 9 months. So I'm already like, oh, well, gee, Ben, what costume do you have for me? Well, we got a hat. We got a sparkler. I'm like, man, I told you I don't want it. And not that, boy. It's not that. We just want you to compete in the contest. We think you'll have fun. And I'm like, are you sure that's all you want? That's all we want, Lloyd. I swear to you. Yeah. Now, obviously, I was right to think that what they were trying to do was to get me in front of a crowd in this garb, doing what I do, so that I could see for myself that it would get over, and therefore I would not have and I would enjoy it because I see that they're enjoying it. And if they're enjoying it, I won't feel like I'm being exalted. I'll feel like I'm contributing to people having a good time, which as an entertainer is, if you don't care more about yourself than the people you're entertaining, is why you do what you do. But we hadn't gotten to that point yet. I'm just like, I don't want to be exalted. I'm not that special. So we do the karaoke. No, actually, before the karaoke contest, a week before it, October 2017, I'm trying on the suit. I'm trying on the soldier jacket.
Well, by the way, let me just interject for a moment. Which suit? Because I'm guessing Smooth Criminal, Michael Jackson, or is this which suit are we talking about?
So this suit in question isn't this first incarnation of it was the soldier jacket. Okay. Or as some people call it, the Sergeant Pepper jacket, whatever you want to call it. But like, Josh, show him a video on Instagram. He'll see it.
Okay.
But long story short, basically, he gives me the outfit, and I'm trying it on. Like, this isn't the night where I'm gonna do it. This is the costumes in 6 days. I'm just trying it on. My name gets called, which is just coincidentally completely random as I'm trying the suit when I'm supposed to be 4 songs later in the rotation. This is not where I go up. I saw the screen. I'm not up until 4 songs from now. There are 3 people supposed to go before me. 2 of them are better singers than I am. But as I'm trying on the suit, Lloyd, make your way to the stage. I'm like, white people, what are you doing to me? And so I go up there, not completely put together. The soldier jacket is on, but like I'm not as put together, but I'm like, all right, my name's called. I'm gonna go do it. My friend Nikki caught the entire thing on video, the entire not official debut of Michael Legacy Jackson. Now, as I'm thinking, we haven't even gotten to October 28th where it happened, where this is 6 days prior. I'm already thinking this isn't going to go over. This is not going to work. This is going to be done. This is going to go over about as well as a Shockmaster. This is going to do as well as a Kiss concert on Nitro. This is not going to work, and you people are going to feel dumb for making me feel like you Vince Russo freaking motherfuckers. You think you're brilliant, but what you're really doing is you're taking $1 million idea and putting it into a 2-cent pot. It's not going to work. That's what I was going to tell them on Saturday, the weekend. But first, here I go. They call me up. I do it. The place loses their mind. I'm not even fully. The hair is on backwards. The nothing. But I do the performance, and I'll send you the video of the not official Michael debut. The place loses their mind, and I'm walking off the stage, and Benny Kelly's looking at me like. That doesn't mean they're gonna like it. That one night. Hey, anything can work on one night. You know what was popular on one night? Republican politics. That was popular on one night. And I'm saying that as a centrist. Not everything lasts for years, And so here comes October 28th. I get up there, first night as this act. The place goes insane. Like everything I'm doing is just it takes off that night, and I'm like, this is gonna last a week. This is not even gonna last a week. Now I'm right. It didn't last a week. It lasted 7 years. But the thing is, that night that's how it started. I did something again, like everything I do. The comedy. The Legacy Tour hashtag, which is not supposed to be a thing. I said it once and people started saying it and I had to go with it.
You seem to have like showbiz thrust upon you. Look, I'm just here to see the show. I'm just here as a patron. I came in for a slice of pizza and now here I am putting on a Michael Jackson soldier costume.
Exactly.
Why am I doing this?
Exactly. I go to a comedy mic to watch comedy. Yeah, you got to be a comedian. I go to a karaoke thing to do karaoke. You got to be Michael Jackson.
Sir, hold this microphone and talk into it for 10 minutes, please.
Don't go to a proctologist's office anytime soon and just be hanging around.
My cousin Katrina said it best. When she said this in 1993, Lloyd, you have all the potential to be a star, but none of the desire to be a star, which is a fair assessment. But the Michael Jackson thing, basically, it started that night. And once I saw that people enjoyed it, I felt better about it because I felt like I wasn't being exalted above other karaoke performers. People actually enjoyed it. People actually were into it. People would come to Charlie's Tap House from other states. Like they will come from Connecticut, they will come from Rhode Island, they will come from Maine to New Hampshire on nights I was there just to see me. There was a family one time there, like 2 little girls and a mom, and they saw me in the garb and they were like, "Oh my God, I gotta do Michael Jackson!" And I did, and they had to go back to Florida. Again, that's that name again. They had to go to Florida.
Thoughts and prayers.
Exactly. But they were going to Florida during a time period where there was a tragedy in their family. And the mother took time to tell me this, we may never be able to come back here again. It was a tragedy in our family. We have to go back to Florida tomorrow. But I need you to know that you made my 2 little girls' entire life Thank you so much. And it's like, there was like the third night that I did in 2017, there was a little boy with Down syndrome, who they saw me do, like, I think I did Rock With You like that night. And according to the staff, like my friend Nikki, like called me over and said, Lloyd, you gotta come see this guy. You know, apparently he showed more emotion apparently in his body language and his face when he saw me do Rock With You than again, I don't know the guy, I just saw him, but according to people that were around him, he showed more emotion in his body language and his face that night than he had shown in 5 years.
That's magic.
And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to this. Maybe it's not maybe I need to loosen up to the idea of being exalted and just go with the fact that people enjoy it. So it started in 2017. It was a reoccurring thing in New Hampshire. I did it at Midway of the Highways open mic on Halloween night 2021. Karaoke, it's like every Thursday at Midway, there's karaoke night. It's called Karaoke. It's a very inclusive and friendly space for people in that community. I've always considered myself an ally to that community. I've tried to be. So that was kind of a natural fit there. The people who run the karaoke mic and DJs, they saw the video of me doing it at the comedy open mic for Halloween. And I said as a joke, wow, this could be a great place for Michael Legacy Jackson to do some work. And the karaoke people saw that and said, yes, please do. Oh my God.
Dude, Lloyd, Lloyd, I'm going to wrap this episode up by saying, I cannot thank you enough for your first of many podcasts with Joe. Hopefully our friend Biff, who is our other sidekick, he lives in Los Angeles, but he is in Phoenix right now playing an annual hockey tournament. This is the first time I'm not playing in a long time. But I'm saying this is the first of many shows which, much like your Michael Jackson and your comedy, you're not being given a choice. This isn't
right. You're just being roped into another goddamn obligation.
This is fair. I mean, for everything that you've mentioned to me, like offline, that you want to get into, like, you know, where I come from and how things came to be, it's probably going to take multiple podcasts. So I get that.
Well, I wasn't talking as a guest. I'm talking as you're going to be a co-host going forward. Yeah. You are just literally like delightfully infectious. You are as good a person as you are talented, and I'm hoping to do stuff with you because I am, like Joe, one of those poor bastards who, you know, have kids. And in both our cases, we happen to really like our significant other, our management, aka our wives and stuff. So I only get to get out. I shouldn't say I only get to go out. Like, you know, last night I took my kid and his two best friends to the Revs New England Revolution soccer game, and nice. How much fun that because he wasn't a sports kid. He fell down the rabbit hole of soccer, and it's his life. And it's like I couldn't have been happier seeing how happy he was. But I like to see, like, you know, I like to see comedy. I'm hoping to do stuff with you over the next year, selfishly, because I can only get out so many times. I'd like to be able to see you more, because you are one of the people that I'm like, yeah, I would drive an hour just to see this guy on a night that I'm not doing it. There's just only so many days. I'm going to post all your socials, all the ways to follow you legally. I'm not going to give the home address.
Right.
We'll see about that.
Well, what I will ask before we close up is this. May I come back on this show at some point to address some of the other things that we didn't get to tonight that you mentioned offline that you wanted to, you know, discuss with me?
100%, because I mean, you haven't come from a charmed existence. You know, you've worked amazingly. No, I mean, what do you suffer from? Oh, a lack of white privilege. And again, you're one of these people who have fought so hard to make other people's lives so much better, yet the road that you've traveled hasn't been the easiest one. At the same time, I want to do a whole episode where you explain the whole Billy Joel fascination because he posted it online, when he went out to Madison Square Garden, Joe, to see Billy Joel. And when he mentioned that in his set at Donovan's, the host afterwards says, did you really go to New York? Or was that part of a bit?
Hey, Billy Joel's the man. What are you talking about?
But he didn't. I didn't strike him as a Billy Joel type.
Uh-huh. We were reading between the lines here. We know what's going on. Yeah, right.
So it's no, I mean, seriously, you're an onion where every layer we peel back, there's going to be some more depth and tears involved. So you are a fascinating human being. And like I said, we've eaten up way too much of your time because I don't, what's this? My notes. Ever shut the fuck up, it says right here. But Lloyd, we're going to post all the stuff. If there's, we will also put it in the description of any bigger shows. Like you said, you have one coming up in Shirley, Mass. Coming up. You got a show. Is that the June 20th show that you were talking about, or is there another June 20th show?
June 20th is New York City.
New York City. Okay. New York
Shirley,
City.
Mass. Shirley, Mass is on June 16th. I'm going to be doing a 30-minute set for the first time ever. So it's kind of a big deal.
Lloyd, I cannot say thank you enough for just lighting up every room that I've seen you in, and for just bringing so much positivity into the world, and for coming on our humble podcast.
And this podcast sorely needs positivity, because I mean, I am the anti-you. I'm not against you. I am like the opposite. I'm like the like Unbreakable.
You're
like,
Mr. Glass.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Glass. I'm like the Mr. Glass of you. I'm very very dour, very bitter. I'm not a good speaker yet. I've been doing a podcast for 6 years. But
to be fair, a lot of what I was going through and mentioning, it took some rambling and a lot of explaining for me to get through a lot of it. So I thank you guys for being as. But you think Jocks talked a lot. I had to ramble forever just to make certain things clear and concise. So thanks for bearing with me as well.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, we will post everything where you could find you, and enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you. I'm going to watch the NXT pay-per-view with my father, which happens to be taking place at this moment in Lowell, Massachusetts.
Yes. Oh, you should. Well, by the way, you ever think of maybe emceeing like a wrestling thing,
oh my goodness,
like a dream thing, I don't know. I mean, not that wrestling's big time, even though there is big time wrestling.
Yeah, there is. I met Jerry the King Lawler there.
Yeah, see, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that. I've never.
I don't have the stroke to get myself in a position like that. But if I was ever offered the opportunity, I would not immediately turn it down.
Like you could see yourself in that position someday, maybe like emceeing.
I have been. The idea has been teased for me to either do ring announcing or commentary on more than one occasion, but it never came to pass.
We'll find a way to make that happen. Everybody, Lloyd Legacy Sharp, thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
Do kids deserve to be subjected to whatever the hell's going on out there? They didn't ask for this. Go ahead, have your kid, and in 10 years, find out how they felt dealing with the lower price health care, divisive politics, and the existence of people who thought that the human centipede wasn't that bad. All I'm saying is, before you have children, think of the children. Which again, I don't have it. I'm helping. I have been practicing virginism for the past 37 years. This is exactly what you thought it was. You heard me say the word. 3 more years, I'll be the perfect candidate for the 4-year-old version sequel. We're back. He's black. He's skeptical all of a sudden.